Welcome to Build by People Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Daria Rudnik, and this show is for HR and L&D leaders, those building real impact from within and shaping AI-ready organizations. If you go to dariarudnik.com, you can download the State of HR in AI Transformation 2026 report. And today we have a very special guest, Anastasia Minko, a senior HR project manager at Smart Europe with deep experience across rewards, performance management, HR business partnering, and talent acquisition. Welcome, Anastasia.
Hi, Daria. Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Well, tell us about your journey. I mean, we've been working together here and out, and I know you worked in scale-ups, startups, enterprises. What's your HR journey?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's been a while since we talked last time. It feels like it was in another really life, and I'm really happy to reconnect again. So, in a nutshell, it was quite a random choice, by the way. Like I happened to be in HR randomly, but then I had also some time to reassess my career path, and I still chose to proceed in HR. So I started initially in rewards in Deloitte. And then I transitioned to Unilever, also still in compensation and benefits. Back then, I think back then it was compensation and benefits. Total rewards was not really a thing. I switched to tech, and it was Yandex, a big tech in Russia back then. It was only 6,000, I think. I grew there to reward manager, and then I also switched to HR business partner role, as that was the time when it was starting, like this whole hype about HR business partner and a dedicated HR person for specific areas. And I liked it. And since then, until till now, or like past few months, I was basically doing mostly HR business partnering. Now and then also developing performance review processes, design integration, as I had always a reward experience, and it was my strength when I would join companies where it needed to be, upgraded or maybe designed from scratch. That's what I also did as a side project. I also moved to Germany 4.5 years back, where I also had some changes. I also started first with tech, and currently I'm in automotive, my first automotive experience ever. And recently I changed from HR business partner role to reward, and I'm now working on the project that will, restart our whole reward and pay philosophy, all the pay scales things, but also most important, I would say, prepare the company for the European Union Transparency Directive. That's my focus now.
That's an incredible experience across industries, across various HR functions, across cultures. When you think about your experience, again, different stages of organizations, different cultures, what stands out for you the most when you as HR are trying to navigate high pace, ever changing environments, need to make decisions in the uncertainty? What have you learned through this experience?
The thing which stands out the most, and I think that's also the reason why it is enjoyable and possible for me to go through industries, through cultures. This is the thought and observation that we as humans have a lot in common. Yes, there are cultural layers. Yes, there are different industries. But in a nutshell, we have a lot to share. And it was funny enough to see how the same problems would evolve regardless of really which industry, which country you are. It's always like, for example, process automatization. It's still there. Excel is still there. And I would say if we look over SME, like small, medium businesses, it's maybe one of the most used tools still to run salary reviews. I mean, and this is crazy because back in Russia, I thought, okay, we just don't have really good tools for that because the legislation in that area requires us to use something that stores the data in Russian data centers. And not a lot of companies would do that. And then I moved to to Germany. And well, yeah, from vibe, you can say startup. But then if you are operating across, the globe and you have 70,000 employees, there's no way you cannot do Excel. You need something like Workday or SAP. But then if you go like layered down, like to small, medium businesses, this is where it's still like not really fixed. Of course, it depends on the company, of course, but especially when we're talking about multiple entities across Europe, it's always easy to digitalize one piece in one jurisdiction. And also for me, one of another topics was, before moving to Europe, I thought, okay, Europe is something like as a whole thing. Well, it's not. It's very different. It's sometimes crazy different. You cannot even, from HR standpoint, you cannot align a lot of things just because legally wise, you must to be compliant. But that also means that you have a lot of differences in terms of, benefits, in terms of pay, in terms of pretty much everything. Yeah, that was one of those two, I guess, were the interesting things that came across throughout my journey.
That's really interesting. I also I work with people in all continents, 6 continents, and I work with people with Japan and Australia and India and US. What I'm noticing, like you said, we all human beings, we all people. Yes, we do have some, I don't know, culture things, but it's very important for leaders to understand the human side first and not just put in labels. Hey, this person is from India and this person is from the US. They must act like this. No, they're not. And seeing people behind the roles, seeing real human beings is the first step, and then comes all the cultural layers and and process and everything else. Cool. Totally. I'm really curious. Like you said, this culture in German companies is specific and be specific to region. And you have experience of working with international companies like Deloitte and Unilever, like Russian companies like Yandex and Positive Technologies, and now Europe, German countries. What do you notice specifically interesting for German companies, for German culture?
I would generally say that in the companies with headquarters in Germany, it's more professional in a way that we can disagree as professionals because we just think differently when we are trying to solve this or that specific problem. But it doesn't get personal until you intentionally, I mean, I never saw this, but I think it could be possible until you intentionally make it possible, make it personal. While in Russian companies, and I'm not sure, but from what I've heard from the people who are working in the companies with Russian speaking management, and where the majority of the employees is still Russian speaking employees. So the personal interaction, so you bring it into the business. It's not professional at the first place from start. So if you hate someone for any reason, it impacts the business. And then, it's just, since I'm here for 4.5 years, it's not so long, but some things I really already forget how I should have been managing all those personal level conflicts while being HR business partner with quite high level managers, by the way. But it was not a business thing, they just had different approaches to life, I guess. That was influencing the business. In any German company or company which I worked for here in Germany, and there were 3 so far, that was never the issue. Different problems, but it was never personal enough to create really business impact. I've seen conflict between manager and direct report, but it was never, high-level managers who cannot stand each other because, I don't know, like different points of view to life. That's the one, I guess. And then I think that's major one. From HR standpoint, I also see a big difference. I got used to it now that you don't need to explain management why you need processes, HR processes, why you need performance review, why you need pay structures. You don't have to explain it. They know they need it, and they're happy to hire someone who can actually build a business, a system that supports business, not just very HR like compliant system, but the one that actually supports the business needs. Back in Russia, it was always, the start was always the buy-in from the management. So you had to convince, I had to convince managers that, pay scales and grading is actually something that we need. And it was not easy. Like, I mean, in Unilever, of course, that was something that was non-negotiable. It was just there. When I'm reflecting on my experience with Yandex or Positive Technologies, because headquarters is in Russia, so we can decide what we do and what we don't do, and then you are like, yeah, well, HR understands that some system is needed to manage the budgets, to make it transparent, to yeah, for everything pretty much, and for people as well, of course, so that they understand what kind of growth and how pace is related to performance, all of that. But for managers, somehow it was always like, is most of the cases, it was something that you had to onboard them with these ideas. And some still, I remember people saying, like management saying, the moment Yandex goes for grading, I resign. Of course, that was also maybe some special moment. I know that in Yandex, they do have grades and all of that started back then. Yeah, but and I don't know also, is it still the problem now? If I would go back to Russia and I would join some startup, would it also be then the point I would need to discuss with management? I don't know how much changed within these 4.5 years, but that was really a thing. Here, no, everyone understands.
Do you think it's not so much about culture, but organizational maturity? Because Yandex and Positive Technologies are startups and scale-ups, still growing, fast moving, ever changing. Well, Smart is definitely an enterprise. Unilever is enterprise, and they've been through those stages.
You know what? Smart is not really an enterprise. We are 300 people in Europe. We are a brand that has 20 years of history, but by character, we are a startup. Because there was the whole thing when Mercedes sold this brand to this joint venture with Geely. So basically, we started operating as we are now, 6 years ago. When you think about like the organizational perspective, it is a startup. We just also have, of course, people who came to join us from Mercedes-Benz, who bring understanding, expertise, and all of that. Smart also had to build everything from scratch, and that was never a question that we need some structure. We do have bands, for example. For a long time, we didn't refresh it. For a long time, we didn't ask the questions: are we fine with wine pay scale? Do we need more? So all of that. But that was never a question of like, do we need it? It was always a question, we don't have now the capacity in HR to dive into that, because we have operations. We need to first do operations up and running so that we can hire people across those 11 entities. I think it's a cultural thing. I don't know. I feel that generally, like the recognition of HR as a profession that also brings value to the business, in Europe, it's more mature.
The one thing is grading and payroll and talent acquisition, which is kind of clear what kind of value it brings to business. The other thing is people development and leadership development, which kind of, yes, it's sort of a nice to have. Yes, everybody tells it's important, but like, how do we see the real ROI on that? We don't know that. So what's your take on that? How is the situation with that in Germany?
Well, I can just recall my conversation with my previous manager in Smart when we had to cut budgets. And she said, like, leadership program is the last thing we're going to touch, in terms of like, we're not cutting this, we need it. Let's cut some other benefits, but this we keep. And this also tells a lot, right? We are doing it now, by the way, like this leadership program. It depends very much still on the company. From Smart perspective, that's what we have, and we really invest in that. And in every company I worked for, there was some budget dedicated to leadership development, and was usually centralized. We usually have a platform with coaching. It's like a subscription-based corporate thing, when you not only for leaders, but of course, like there are also coaches who are specialized in that, so you can reach out and get this support. Now, in Smart, we also have, it's like not corporate coach, but a coach with whom we partner for like quite a while for now. There was some also coaching support when the company was going through transformation for leaders. Delivery Hero, it was a separate budget for that. It's almost like a default that coaching is needed for leaders. Ideally, what I think is the most working framework here is to also involve HR business partner, or if we are talking about C-level managers who are supported from CHRO. So it should be connected to the feedback and the realities of the business, because when this bridge is not there, there is a gap. Because then the leader can work on with a coach on something that they think is actual, but without this feedback from employees, from peers, it's really hard to work very focused on the next steps in terms of leadership development.
Well, that sounds like a fairy tale. Like leaders support coaching and do go for coaching. They grow. They know that HR is important. That's amazing. I am sure there's a trick. Like, what are the challenges?
It's more bureaucratized. If you have a low performer case, you're gonna most probably end up with mutual agreement. You most probably gonna end up paying some severance, and this is just a given. In majority of European markets, I think UK is more close to US, which is why there it has more similarities with Russian market, I would say. So this is one of the hurdles, and of course, one of the biggest ones is Works Council. I mean, it's like it's a balance, right? So generally, I think it's good that people have this opportunity, but I find that in most of cases in Germany, it's a bit too much. It's like, and I cannot understand how the business even can sometimes prosper having such a strong works council that, basically blocks some initiatives that are really, really, truly needed. I've also worked with the companies with works council, and it very much depends then who you actually have there. If you're working in a company with works council, it's better to have good relationship with them because the power is huge. If you have good connection, if you manage to establish good connection, it's going to help you. But it's a two-way street. You cannot just from your side wish and work on that. There should be also some will to do that from another side. So I would think that those two are the biggest challenges also.
I want to get back to what you said about like not bringing personal conflict to work, which is great. It's a great thing. But there is another thing is like bring your whole authentic self to work. And it feels like when you don't bring any personality, you're not fully authentic. What do you think?
It's an interesting question. But for me, it's not about not bringing your authentic self. For me, it's about maybe two things. Assume good intentions. When you are angry with someone not doing exactly like how you would expect that to be, it doesn't always, in rare cases, means that the person actually intended. So there should be some miscommunication. And when you think about it like that, then you step into the communication from a different vibe, and then the potential for conflict is much less. We can disagree and commit to do things together because we work in the same company, and by default we are aligned on that we want the best for the company, and we are supporting their strategy of the company. So that's, of course, also not in 100% of the cases, but majority of the managers joining the company, they bought this whole strategy thing. Maybe in years, frustration accumulates and then they behave differently, might happen. But what I saw back home, it was also like, it was not the same thing. You had to work first on the whole, topic of bringing everyone on board with a business strategy first after they were hired. And here, some disagreements between them top managers could also influence them the business relations. This is something I never so far came across here. Yeah. So it's not about not bringing authentic self. I think it's about accepting that the authentic self of other person and having this basic level of commitment to the strategy of the company that you are working for, or you joined, or you chose to join, right? It can happen over the time, but if you are already not really, supporting it, you can challenge that. You can bring your perspective. But then if nothing changes and for you it's really important, you know, maybe it's wiser to choose something else.
Well, thanks. I so much agree. Absolutely. I like what you're saying. We are civilized adults. It's not just we don't experience feelings, but we can control. We are in control of our feelings and emotions, and trying to understand other person's perspective, like respecting authenticity, not just my authenticity, but authenticity of other people as well, and focusing on the common shared goal. These are the critical things for productive work culture and conversation. And it's not like you don't have conflicts. It's just those conflicts are not personal. Those are the conflicts of ideas. Those when you exchange questions and challenge other people's assumptions without being offended by that. So yeah, that really is a great example. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
You have a story about how people can handle the same situation differently with different outcome. Can you please share it with us today?
Sure. So for me, it was really a striking experience of different approaches from leadership perspective as well. So it was exactly like same situation, really. It was like a mutual agreement situation when we had to act fast, and well, I made a mistake in both cases. But in first case, I had a manager who, well, didn't tolerate mistakes really. That was really like in all this stress, a big case. I cannot go much into detail. Most of the times those cases are quite stressful and you need to act quite fast. And you need to align with the lawyers. You need to get back to the person. You need to do it all very quickly. I did a mistake. It was something that is fixable. But like in the first scenario, the manager who didn't tolerate mistakes, basically, I was the one who then also, had to be alone basically in this situation. And the only feedback was like, yeah, well, you made a mistake. That's your fault. And all of that. And in my recent experience with Smart, this is like big kudos to my current manager. So because I not only felt and heard from the manager directly that, we all make mistakes. You must be very much under pressure right now. I get it. So you're already feeling like, you are not alone in the boat. But also he helped me to manage the situation further. So I was not the one who, have to go through it all and also to correct myself. So I felt supported. I felt it's fine. It's not a big deal at the end of the day. It's correctable. All is well. And that made such a big difference for me. Those are the moments where you feel what actually leadership is and how much it affects not only your career, but your self-esteem. I think. More or less, we have different level of sensibility to those topics. But if you have a manager who always tells you that with each mistake that you are not okay, at the end of the day you're going to believe it. And then when you have a manager who says, "Yeah, I'm here for you. It's fine. It's fixable. Let's cope with that together," that also influences the way you feel as a person, as a professional. I like to rely on data, but I don't have so much experience of working in like 100 companies in Germany so far. So I am very limited. But from my experience, from people with whom I talk to, usually when it's a company with some traditional German style management, which means very thorough, maybe not sometimes super dynamic, but good human qualities, And this is something that then you can see how the decisions are made with this in mind. You hire managers who share this same way of thinking. The culture survives, the culture strengths gets stronger, and even if you don't verbalize it, it's still there. Mm-hmm. And then if you really have the different approach from the very top, It runs very different. So I don't know, like, if it's true to judge that, if you go to a really like old style German rooted company, that would be similar. From my experience, from people I work with here, this is true, but I don't have a lot of data to judge about it.
It's great that we have these examples. It's great that we can see the companies doing things. From your example, yes, it's hiring the right people that are aligned with company's culture, but it's also continuously developing leaders so that they keep growing, keep being good leaders for their people and for their organizations. Well, thanks. It's a great conversation. I have a few rapid fire questions for you to get to know you a little bit more personally. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that.
Are you a tea person or a coffee person?
Tea person.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Would you rather take a message or a phone call?
Oh, message.
Again. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a lawyer. Because in Santa Barbara, we were watching with mom. I don't remember the name of the actress or even of the character she played, but there was a very bright one. That's why I think. And she was a lawyer.
Cool. What's one rule you've broken but don't regret?
Yeah, I promised to think about this one, right? In my mind, it was a rule, it's private. I thought always that I should first get married and then have a child with a man. So I did it the otherwise. And, well, no regrets.
Thanks for sharing. That's so sweet. Thanks for sharing your personal story with us. And thanks, Anastasia. It's great to reconnect. It's great to have you here on the show. I really love the insights that you shared about different cultures and different types of managers and how important it is leadership development for building a strong culture, how important it is to see other person's perspective first and be aligned on the goal to have meaningful, constructive conflict of ideas and not fall into like personality conflicts. Well, thanks for being here with us. How people can find you if they want to have the conversation with you, if they want to connect.
I'm there on LinkedIn. Happy to connect. I'm also doing career consultations as a side hustle of mine, especially for those who are assuming moving to Germany or assuming changing their companies when already in here. So yeah, happy to be helpful. Thank you, Daria, for the invitation. Great talk.
Absolutely. The link to Anastasia's LinkedIn profile is in the notes of this episode. Reach out to her if you're thinking of moving to Germany, finding a job in Germany. And if you like this episode, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for the next episodes. Bye.